Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Malcolm X. Whether you're an apostle in ancient times or a student in modern times, there's one principle that remains the same, and that's education is the foundation for growth. Since the 21st century, we see that education has been made accessible to the general public, but what about times when it wasn't? I'm Bear, and welcome to the Scholarly Cheese Guild, where we'll be talking about education in ancient times, such as Mesopotamia, Greece, and Rome. So the first education system we are going to be studying today is based in ancient Middle East around 3500 BCE. It's a Sumerian education. We see that their education was like an elite club where only the wealthy and noble would get to participate. If you're part of this group, your day would consist of learning practical education as well as academic. And you would go to this temple school, and please excuse my pronunciation, which was called a deba, which served as centers of learning. This is where you would learn things such as cuneiform, mathematics, and accounting. One of the main purpose of a deba was to train scribes. So if you found a way to memorize cuneiform, you could become a scribe, and we see that scribes often worked in high places such as for the government or temples. We see that non-royals had a limited access to education. Most would just learn from their community. We see that men would usually learn from their fathers and apprenticeships found in the community, while women would learn how to manage the household in things like household chores or how to take care of children from their mothers. Depending on their status, they would also learn how to manage the household. We see that similar education systems were found in places like Egypt, China, and India, where memorization and societal values were heavily emphasized. The next education system we'll talk about is actually in ancient Greece, but before that, let's take a break and head on to the Mischief Corner.
Hello and welcome to my Mischief Corner. Today, we'll be talking about a slightly boring fact, but you'll see why it's not so boring soon. You see, today we will be talking about Harvard, an amazing university where many of the best and brightest have come from. It was founded in 1636, which, yes, is pretty boring. But it's not that boring when you think about the fact that not only was it before, the periodic table, perhaps the Declaration of Independence, it even was before the gravitational theory, and before the end of the time of the samurai. What a jacked fact. Well, thank you.
One thing I really like about that fact is it showcases horizontal history, which allows us to see when people or things were made or lived in relation to each other, and it allows us to have a better grasp of history. The next system we're going to be talking about is Greece, and although it fluctuated depending on what city-state you were in, Greece's basic system allowed for boys to go to school, while girls would usually learn from their mother's housework and so on. This was all around except for Sparta, where girls also learned how to fight. We see that most boys would start their education at 7 years old. This is when they would learn to read and write, and they would do this by using a clay or wax tablet, which was basically an ancient day whiteboard. Once it was heated, it could be reused. Another part of Greek education was the arts, so we see a lot of young boys would practice instruments, that way they could play them during celebrations. Greeks also prioritized sports, especially in Sparta, and they made their boys practice sports multiple times, that way they could participate in the Olympic Games. So in Rome, our last system, we see they highly value Greek ideas, allowing them to develop a Hellenistic teaching style. This basically means that they combined Roman politics with Greek ideas and classical literature. While the rich afforded to go to school, the very rich hired tutors, and usually these tutors would be Greek slaves or Greek freedmen. The reason they hired these Greek tutors were because Greek people were viewed as geniuses in the arts and Latin, allowing their children to gain an elite education. We also see that there's a heavy emphasis on reading and writing. This was because reading and writing was a huge part of Roman culture. While men would be able to learn simple math like addition and subtraction, most of the time women would only be able to learn how to read and write, and children that were not rich were usually not educated. While all these education systems were different, one common theme we see is allowing the privileged to learn, while the underprivileged would have to find a different means of life. This was all until the Han and Tang dynasty where things started to change. But I guess that was a story for another time. Hi everyone! Thank you guys so much for watching our video. If you like more videos like this, don't forget to check out our video, and please like, subscribe, share, and that's all. So bye. We're good?